streaming on YouTube.
I clearly need to get fancy with my background. I should at least have Techstars on there.
Hi, I'm Ben Data, CEO of Food Maven and a Denver Startup Week co-founder. Denver Startup Week has always been about community. And today, it's more important than ever to show how we can come together to create opportunities out of the challenges that we face. Opportunities for every member of the community. Before we dive in, we want to say a special thank you to our 2020 Denver Startup Week sponsors, who make it all possible. Thanks to our title sponsors, Downtown Denver Partnership, JP Morgan Chase, Prologis, and Zero. And our track sponsors who have made all the great content you're hearing today possible. Battery 621 and the Public Works, Capital One Cafe, Colorado Lending Source, Friday Health, Quizlet, Exactly, Zayo, and Zestful. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement this week. Thank you to Wix, Kenzen, MAPR Agency, Obsidian HR, Kickstart Fund, Promontory Mortgage, Molson Coors, and Comcast. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Thank you for your support at Denver Startup Week. You help make all of this possible.
At Zayo, our fiber fuels global innovation. Everything we do, everything we can imagine. Never in history has innovation happened at such a rapid pace. And all of it depends on bandwidth connectivity. Millions of miles of Zayo's fiber span the globe, traveling unique routes, providing dense metro footprints, offering next-generation solutions. We didn't just see the future of fiber, we built it. We delivered it. Every millisecond, our fiber is fueling crucial operations, breakthroughs, and innovations for the world's most impactful companies. Companies that are disrupting the status quo, igniting imaginations, revolutionizing industries, and creating brand new ones. Our customers are advancing wireless communication, transforming healthcare, changing education, revolutionizing transportation, redefining banking, powering retail, and upping the game in esports. These innovators rely on Zayo's fast, secure fiber networks to connect their offices, factories, data centers, clouds, exchanges, venues, and more. Ultimately, fueling innovation and transforming lives. And behind those fiber connections, Zayo is all about human connections. We take ownership in all we do. Our employees take the initiative to deliver trusted solutions to every customer and make their experience effortless. We are energetic and entrepreneurial, a partner to rely on. We are Zayo. We are working with our customers on what comes next, constantly anticipating what can be. We are fueling global innovation that is changing the world.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate Barton. Nicole, good to see you. And welcome to Denver Startup Week. I work on the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee, and I also am part of the team at the Downtown Denver Partnership. I just want to take a moment before we kick off to thank our sponsor for this series, which is the Stronger Together Women of Denver Startup Week series. There's no one better to be part of this series than Nicole, who is an absolute legend in Colorado and has incredible information to share with all of us as we think about starting and growing businesses, an enormous amount of expertise. And before we kick off, I want to thank our sponsor for this series, Promontory Mortgage Path. We have Molly here from Promontory to say a few words. So Molly, I'm going to turn it over to you to say a few words, and then we'll get over to Nicole's pitch perfect presentation.
Cool, thank you so much. Hi everyone, I'm Molly Bergside. I'm a product manager at Promontory Mortgage Path, and I'm really excited to welcome you today to Stronger Together, a Women of Denver Startup Week session. For those of you who don't know us, Promontory Mortgage Path is a Denver-based fintech on a mission to change the way community lenders approach their mortgage businesses. We are a fast-growing team of problem solvers leveraging tech to engineer a faster, simpler, more inclusive mortgage process. We've been lucky enough to continue to grow during these uncertain times. So if you are seeking an environment dedicated to your personal and professional growth, and one where you can have a real and lasting impact, I encourage you to stop by our virtual booth at the job fair. We're grateful for the opportunity to partner with Denver Startup Week to support Denver's connected and diverse entrepreneurship ecosystem. And we are especially proud to sponsor the Stronger Together Women of Denver Startup Week series. Promontory Mortgage Path believes that advocating for women in entrepreneurship and business in general is critical. Gaining inspiration from women who have forged the path, like our upcoming speaker, Nicole Glaros, is important as we continue to support women in leadership. And with that said, let's welcome Nicole and enjoy the session.
Thanks so much, Molly. Thanks, Kate. I'm really excited to be here. And it's weird hearing yourself described as a legend because I'm still alive. And I feel like in order to be a legend, you need to be dead. And I'm still here and in the flesh. So anyway, I'm honored and delighted to be here to share some insights with you guys today. Just as a little bit of level setting, we're here to talk about the pitch. Let me share my screen quickly. Give me 1 second. Okay, hopefully you guys can all see my screen. We're here to talk about fundraising and how to develop the perfect pitch. But as a reminder, there are 3 phases of fundraising. They're very distinct phases. The who, meaning who you're targeting, the pitch itself, which is the message behind what you're, the message behind your company, and then the close. And today we're only going to be talking about the pitch. So in order for you to get great at fundraising, you need to focus on all 3. And today we're only going to do item 2. Items 1 and 3 are an hour plus session as well. So before we get started, I would like to just set the stage a little bit. I go into a little bit of a pitch persona in order to give this, and I saw that Malty's on here. Malty's probably seen this 10,000 times before, but I want to ask for your permission and a little bit of your forgiveness for going to the pitch persona, and I'll explain why as we get further down the road. Also, I cannot see your comments right now, so if you're asking comments in the session, I promise I'm not ignoring you, but I'll try to get to them afterwards. All right, so if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get started. So entrepreneurs suck at pitching. I know this because I've spent the last 15 years listening to entrepreneurs pitch, and I can count the good ones on only one hand. My name is Nicole Glaros, and I'm the Chief Investment Strategy Officer at Techstars, and I'm here to help you guys not suck at pitching. Very first job is know your audience. When you're pitching to an investor, you have to know what they care about. It's not that they necessarily care about your business, it's that they care about returns. Investors are not donors. They need to generate a return based on the investment from your company. So if you fundamentally understand that fact, you can weave the concept of returns into every single sentence that comes out of your mouth and every single slide that you put together in your deck. Making sure that you understand that they're fundamentally evaluating you on risk and reward is key to understanding how to deliver an effective pitch. So as you're developing your pitch, make sure you're reviewing every sentence and every word to evaluate it through a returns perspective. All right, the second thing is, what's the goal? What's the goal of a pitch? Most people think the goal of a pitch is fundraising, but you'd be wrong. Your goal is to entertain me. Your goal is to impress me. The outcome that you're looking for is to get another meeting. You're not going to get an investor that's going to write you a check in that first meeting. You're not going to get an investor that's going to write you a check based on your slide deck. Your whole objective is just to get to another meeting. What that means is you don't have to give me all of the information about your company. You just need to give me enough that I want to continue on to the next meeting. A couple things really quickly. A lot of what I'm going to show you today is not only for a stand-up pitch where you're in front of a room full of people, but it is also, you can probably hear my children pounding upstairs. Sorry about that. Not only are you going to hear a pitch that's for standing up in front of a group of people, but this also works in terms of creating your deck or also having a partner meeting with venture funds. All right, there are 4 main sections to your pitch. The first section is the intro section. Every single person here can deliver their pitch in 5 minutes or less. Even if you have an hour-long meeting, you do not want to spend an hour talking about your company. You want to get into questions because, again, remember, your whole job is to get to the next meeting. So I encourage all of you to focus on 5-minute pitch, and that's it. When you break it down for 5 minutes, it looks like this. First, you spend about a minute in the intro. Second, you spend about 2 to 3 minutes in the demo section. Third, the business stuff. And finally, the landing. We're going to separate each one of those into sections so you can understand. But first, we're going to talk about the intro. As you're developing this intro section, I want you to spend 80% of the time that you focus on building your pitch. I want you to focus on putting that here. The intro section is the hardest part to get right. I want you to think back about how I started. Remember back. If you can remember, what did I do? I introduced myself. I stated what the problem and the opportunity was. I stated what I do and why you should care. And I actually established a little bit of credibility. I did this in about 15 seconds. And the whole goal there was to be interesting. You want the person to get into a lean forward motion. You want to get them engaged and understanding and excited about what it is that you're doing. Because at the end of the day, your competition is actually my cell phone. It's that little device that's either sitting in my pocket or sitting on the desk buzzing. It's got Twitter that's telling me that my stock has gone down, or it's got my husband sending me pictures of my kids. You have to be more interesting than photos of my children, and that is not easy to do. Because once you've lost my attention, you're not getting it back. So your goal is to get me so engaged with what you are saying that the rest of the world fades to black, including my cell phone. All right, but yeah, thanks, Nicole. Being interesting, that's easy, not. So how are some ideas, or what are some ideas in order to be interesting? Here's just a handful, right? Tell me a startling fact. Tell me a personal, interesting story. Contradict wisdom. Make me laugh. Plant a fear. Be different. The only way that you can be interesting is to continuously read the affect of the person that you're talking to and look for that glazed over look in their eyes. If you see people's eyes glaze over, you do not have them. That means that your approach is incorrect. I'm going to give you guys some examples of companies that I think that did this well. These companies are actually from Techstars demo days, so you will see that they're standing on stage, but I want you to know that the techniques are appropriate, whether it's for a demo day or whether you're sitting down with partners or any sort of pitch. Also, these companies were a long time ago. This next company that we're going to see is from 2010, and they use a technique called twist the knife that gets you to viscerally feel the problem. Let's listen to them talk about it.
I'm Liam Davis-Mead. I'm here with my co-founder, Shane Taylor, and we're ScriptPad. ScriptPad transforms the iPad and iPhone into a digital prescription pad, enabling doctors to write prescriptions faster and safer than their current paper process. Why do this? Because this stuff kills people. This is an example of a completely illegible handwritten paper prescription. The pharmacist in this case dispensed the wrong heart medication because he couldn't read the doctor's handwriting. He mistook Iserdil for Plendil, and instead of controlling the patient's condition, the medication caused a massive and fatal heart attack. And this happens again and again and again. In fact, of the 1.7 billion handwritten prescriptions scrawled out each year on those familiar paper script pads, up to 40% contain some form of error, whether it's missed drug interactions, improper dosing, or just plain unreadable handwriting. Each year, 7,000 people die, and another 1.5 million are injured as a result of these errors, causing billions in avoidable hospitalization and treatment costs.
Now, I want you to think back to how this made you feel, right? And I also want you to attempt to put on an investor hat. Imagine for a moment you've got a checkbook in your pocket and you're trying to figure out where to invest capital that you are going to get the most return. So I'm thinking back to what he said. Think about the market. Who's the market? The market is hospitals. The market is doctors. This is a huge market, and this is a customer base that is capable of paying. They also have huge motivations in terms of their desire to pay, right? They want to lower their liability. They want to lower deaths or improper drug diagnosis, right? They're highly motivated to use a product like this. But in addition, you don't just hear that they do digital prescriptions, you felt it. I mean, let's be honest, after seeing that, who's terrified of ever getting a paper prescription ever again? The next time you get a paper prescription, I promise you that you're going to be asking your doctor exactly what the prescription is for and what the dosage is so that you can double check it against what the pharmacy gives you. So they didn't just tell you that they did paper prescription or digital prescriptions, they made you feel it. This is called twist the knife, that you viscerally feel the problem rather than just understanding at a level what they did. But notice that they also pulled in those elements about market into their pitch. I understand who the market is, I understand why they care, and I'm leaning forward in that first minute. That first minute is so crucial. As I said earlier, as you're preparing your pitch, you should spend 80% of your time on this section. Even though it's only a minute, it is the most important minute. In fact, if you can get it less than a minute, you get bonus points. If you're doing your pitch in that first minute and you're losing people, change it. Continuously iterate, try those different techniques that I outlined, try different techniques under each one until you get to one that are causing people that lean forward motion. All right, so that's section one, assuming you've spent most of your time prepping that section, then you get to the demo section. The highlight of the demo section is show me, don't tell me. So many founders want to tell me about their product, but the problem is I have heard thousands of pitches. I have heard your business before. I promise you that your pitch is not new in my ears. So when you tell me words, I am listening to I'm recalling all of the other pitches that are the exact same that I've seen before, and I'm lumping you in together with everything else I've ever seen. But when you use imagery, to pull me out of it, then I can understand how your business is different than everything else I've ever seen. There was a time period at Techstars where 20% of all applications that were coming into Techstars were social, local, mobile event discovery. And I had said publicly many times, I am never investing in a social, local, mobile event discovery company. There's just so many of them out there. I will never pick the one that wins, and they're impossible to make money. And yet we got an application from a company called Native that says, we make an app that lets friends discover and attend live events or attend events. And this is true, this is what they did. But when you see the demo, when you actually see it, you can understand why they're different from everything else that's out there. Let's take a look.
From the second that you log on to Native, we start to get to know you. You authenticate with your favorite social networks so that we can bring your interests to life. Then we ask you a couple questions to get to know you better. These questions will periodically appear in your feed so that we can improve our recommendations to you. This is your first recommendation. As we scroll through, it becomes clear that this hike was recommended because the weather's great, your friends are available, and you love to spend time outdoors. Here's another. This yoga class is happening soon nearby, and you told us that you were interested in working out more. When serendipity strikes and the time is right, Native will let you know. This concert is trending now, happening soon, and matches your interests. Right from the app, you can listen to a preview of the artist, you can add it to your calendar, or even book tickets. Native also makes rallying your friends to go incredibly easy. With a couple taps, we match you with the best friends to bring, and with a single tap, we send a notification to all these friends. And with a swipe, they can say that they're interested too. Goodbye staring at your phone, and hello, adventure.
It always makes me laugh when I hear that last statement. It's so corny. So a couple things. First of all, this is a founder named Devin Tavona. If you know him, his company has pivoted a lot. They no longer do this because, as I said back then, social, local, mobile event discovery is very hard to do. He now runs a company called Pana. However, when you start to see a demo like this, you start to understand what makes it different. And if you start to think through the investor mindset, I can think about things like customer acquisition. How does he acquire customers? Oh, you share with your friends right in the app. Got it. There's a virality coefficient here, but he never says it. It's buried in the demo. He uses the demo to highlight these things for me, helping me understand the business opportunity, helping me understand and lower that risk of investment, right? He also talks about the business model if you were paying attention. You can purchase tickets right in the app. Oh, got it. They have a business model. And he's using the demo to highlight this to me. He's using the demo to show me in all the ways that his product is different. He's not just using words. As a little aside, when he made this demo, the features of the product that he showed you were not yet built. They were on the roadmap, they were coming, but they weren't real yet. My point is just because your product isn't done or those features aren't ready, as long as they are in the vision and the roadmap of your product, you can create a demo around them. Use every opportunity you can to have imagery, whether it's video or photos or screenshots that help me understand your product. And inside of that, you want to layer the business opportunities in so I can understand how this company is going to make money, how the company is going to grow, and how the company is going to be different than everything else out there. Section 2, this demo section, is also the hardest section, is the second hardest section to get right. Most founders want to blow right through this. So they want to put a single screenshot of their product on a pitch deck. Don't do that. Spend as much time here as you need to walk me through the real opportunity. Usually 2 to 3 minutes out of a 5-minute pitch. All right, so we covered the intro. We covered the demo. That's section 2. Let's move on to the business section. Maybe if I can get the slide to change. There we go. So interestingly, this is where most founders spend a ton of their time. They focus on this section. But if you do section 1 and section 2 really well, this section will come very naturally to me or to you. This section is also really about how what the business model of the company is, what my investment opportunity is. All right, so one slide you're going to need in there is a market slide. You need to talk about how big your market is. If you are raising capital from investors, how big your market is matters. However, you don't have to have all of the answers. This is Isaac Saldana, which is one of the founders of our near and dear SendGrid. It's near and dear to all of our hearts. And when Isaac gave his pitch, he didn't know how big the market was. In fact, at the time, there was no data on what transactional emails even were and how big that market could possibly be. Transactional emails, for your own information, those are the emails that come from applications that you want to get. They're the shipping notifications from Amazon or the order notifications from Nike. These are the software-driven notices, not marketing-oriented emails. And so when Isaac wanted to go talk about the market size, this is what he did. Let's listen to it.
So how big is our market size? The companies you see here are email marketing companies, and they approximately send 100 million emails per day. Facebook alone dwarfs this market. They send over 500 million transactional emails per day. And there are many other companies sending transactional emails that don't have the resources Facebook has to deal with transactional email problems.
So if you looked closely at that, you could have seen that the 4 companies that he first said, the marketing email companies, those were publicly traded companies, and those were only 4 or 5 companies. Look at the whole universe of other companies that are out there that need transactional emails, not marketing emails, right? The market for this company isn't big. The market for this company isn't even huge. It's gigantic. It's massive. And as an investor, that means tons of opportunities for return for me, right? And that actually played out. As you all know, SendGrid IPO'd in 2017, which was a great exit for all of the investors involved. You also need to talk about your business model. You need to talk about how you, the company, is going to make money. If you don't know how you are going to make money, how do I know how I am going to make money off of my investment in you? Even if you don't have all of the answers, you still have to talk about it. When I give this talk live, I always say, what's wrong with this slide? And 9.9 times out of 10, the audience tells me there are too many words on the screen, which is totally true. However, notice that there's no pricing. You don't have to have all of the answers to talk about your business model, but you do need to talk about it. So this is a company that's called Next Big Sound that went through our program in 2009. And when they were going through the program, they weren't exactly sure how they were going to price their product, but they did have a rough idea of how the business model was structured. They knew that they had a freemium approach, would offer a level that was free, and then an increasing tiers based on price and features. It can be that simple, but please talk about it if you don't know. And if you do know, then talk about the numbers in detail for me. Help me understand what the business model and the revenue opportunity is in front of the company so I can start to understand what my returns potentially look like. A lot of founders want to talk about competition, but at the end of the day, I don't care about your competition. What I care about is how you're different. I care about your differentiation, because at the end of the day, I care about how you're going to win over them. So please don't show me some chart with a box checks that you've got these features and your competition doesn't have those features. I don't want to know that. By the way, those charts are made up anyway. Your competition has that exact same slide about you with some other check boxes next to it that you don't have. Those slides are BS. But I want you to talk about what makes you different, what makes you better, why you're going to win over your competition. Because again, this is returns oriented. This is how I make money back off of my investment. The audio on this clip is really bad, so apologies for that in advance. But this is a company called Dash. They used to make a device that's stuck into the OBD2 port on your car that turned your car and your phone into a Fitbit for your car. So let's hear him talk about differentiation.
Now, we are unlike anything out there on the market today. We'll work on any make of car. We are hardware agnostic. You buy off-the-shelf hardware, you can pick it up for as low as $10 on Amazon or Sears. Our product is multi-platform, and we do all of this with no monthly fees.
So breaking this apart, there's a couple things that are going on here. First of all, notice he doesn't trash his competition. He doesn't say that OnStar sucks because they only work on one make of car. He talks about how he's better, not about how his competition is worse. Please, when you're doing your differentiation, take the high road. Always take the high road. Talk about how much better you are, not about how your competition sucks. We hate it when politicians do it. Don't you do it too. Second of all, notice at the bottom of the screen, you can see the competition showing. It shows that there's OnStar. It shows that there's Automatic. It shows that there's Mohio. So I know that he knows who those are, but he's just talking about how he is better than them. Okay. You got to talk about your differentiation. By the way, please don't make sure you're thorough about it, because if you tell me I have no competition, I know you're wrong. And I know that you're either lying to me or you're lying to yourself. So if you think for a moment you don't have competition, sit down with an investor and ask them who they think your competition is, so you as a founder can get a better idea of who you're really up against. It is not no one, it is always someone. Okay, you got to talk about the team. This is my single favorite slide in this whole talk, because it tells a really great story. So this photo is the team slide photo from the pitch deck from Next Big Sound, who we saw earlier, with a business model. Now, at the time when they were going through Techstars program, they wanted to raise a seed round, and they had decided that they had wanted to raise that seed round from the Foundry Group. Actually, this was back in 2009. Seed rounds at the time were in the $250,000 range, which is what Next Big Sound wanted to raise. They wanted to raise $250,000 from Foundry Group. So when they did their deck, this is the slide that they had in their deck. At the same time, this was the team slide on Foundry Group's website. This is the slide from the Next Big Sound team deck, or the team slide for the Next Big Sound pitch deck. And this was the photo on Foundry Group's website at that time. See the correlation? The reason that I tell you this is because at the time, Next Big Sound was graduating from college. In fact, they were flying back to Chicago to take finals, and they come back to Boulder to participate in the program. They fly back to graduate and they come back. And so when it came time to put their team slide together, they didn't know what to put. We're graduating college students. We don't have a career yet. We don't have big fancy logos we can put on the slide yet. What do we say? But they managed to be creative about it and put together this. Now, the only person that ever got that joke was people from Foundry Group. And the message that it sends to Foundry Group is, we're looking at you, we're coming after you, we want to be like you, we have a sense of humor. But most interestingly, I think the message that this sends to Foundry Group is, if we can be this creative about a team slide in our pitch deck, imagine how creative we can be when a real problem faces our company. Look, there is no success manual for running a company. Lots of different best practices, but as we all know, lots of companies fail. It is your creativity and your ingenuity that will get you to succeed. It is your ability to turn your weaknesses, like not having a background, into a strength. And that is exactly what this company did. For what it's worth, they didn't raise $250,000 from Founder Group. The round ended up being 1.1 million, and they sold a number of years ago to Pandora, which was a great exit for all the investors involved. All right, another section of the business section that you need to include is timeline and traction. The most important words on this slide are in just 87 days. In just 87 days, they integrated 6 services, they're tracking 500,000 artists and recorded 130 million fan interactions in just 87 days. What you're telling investors is that you know how to run fast and you know how to execute like mad to get it done. If this had said 20 years, we wouldn't be interested. If it had said 5 years, I might be a lot less interested. But when it says 87 days, my jaw hits the floor. And as a startup, time is money. I know that you are going to make mistakes, and I know that you're going to trip up along the way, and that the thing that you are racing against is the clock for when the dollars run out. So the more you can execute and the more you can learn in the shorter period of time, the more the likelihood is that there's a good return on this for me. I should add, if you don't have a good timeline story, please don't include it, because timeline can work against you as well. And if you're not sure whether or not you have a good timeline story, please ask somebody and get other people's opinions. Timeline and traction are very similar. So timeline on the previous slide was just in 87 days. That was the key here. Also in 87 days, this is the traction that they had. I believe that at the time they had said, and these are the companies that we're in early talks with around business relationships. Wow, you guys did all that in 87 days. That's great. Making sure that you post traction if you can put logos on there to validate your existence, any potential customers that you have or any existing customers. If you have potential customers, you might want to ask their permission first. But this is where you're showing me the traction that you have that proves that the market is interested and willing to pay for your product. All right. That was the business stuff, the business section. Like I said, if you do the earlier sections correct, this section actually goes pretty quickly. And you spend maybe 2 minutes in this section. Then we come to the last section, the landing section. And basically, this is just where you want to leave me lasting impressions. This is where you want to beat me over the head with your key points. When you're pitching, I'm only going to remember a couple things that you say. When we're talking, I'm only going to remember maybe 2 or 3 things that you tell me. If you really want me to remember them, you're going to tell me them again here. You can state them. So one guideline I always give to founders is put the 2 or 3 messages you want me to hear on a Post-it note and stick it on your computer. And as you're putting together your pitch deck, make sure you include those 2 or 3 points in 2 or 3 places in your deck. So you can say it in the intro, you can weave it in as part of the demo, it could be part of the business section, but you want to recreate or restate them succinctly in the closing so that I remember them. That helps solidify it in my brain. So when I think back on that pitch that I heard, I'm associating your pitch with these 2 or 3 messages that you wanted me to take away. Also in the landing section, make sure that you always, always, always make a call to action. It doesn't matter what the situation is that you're making your pitch. If it's a partner meeting, if it's an angel investor that you're sitting across the table from, or if you're standing on stage for a demo day or a pitch competition, you should always be making an ask. Ask could be something as simple as, is this interesting enough for you to consider an investment? Yes or no, right? And depending on the answer, will help you identify next steps. If you're doing a pitch competition, please don't publicly ask for capital. That could get you in trouble with the SEC. However, if you are standing in front of a group of people, one thing you can ask them is, we're looking for early beta testers, or I'm trying to hire a VP of engineering. If you know anybody, please make the recommendation. Or as simple as, if you find my product interesting, come find me after the show. I'd love to tell you more about it. The day that you became an entrepreneur was the day that you became a salesman. Never waste an opportunity to sell your product or your business. Those were the 4 sections. However, some final thoughts on how to make this all tie together very nicely. Delivery is everything. I started off the talk by asking for your permission and your forgiveness to go into a little bit of a pitch persona. I promise I'm not always this obnoxious in real life, sometimes, but not always. However, my whole goal is to get your attention. And I do that by using strong language. I use that by learning how to speed up my words really fast when I want to emphasize something, or how to slow down to make a point. When you practice your delivery and you're solid in your delivery and you're maintaining the attention of your audience, you've won. And by the way, this is just practice. Anybody can stand on stage and deliver a great talk. Anybody can sit in front of an investor and deliver a great pitch. It just takes practice. So work on your delivery, making sure that you can use those tools well. Please never use bullet points in your deck. Please, please, please. Remember what the goal of this is? The goal is to get to the next meeting. The goal is to be interesting, and so I engage. Can somebody please tell me when you've ever read bullet points that were engaging? They're just not. They're the most boring things on earth. And oh, by the way, you put way too many words on the screen when you use bullet points. Way too many words. The challenge is that people will either read or they will listen. They will not do both. You want to use your pitch deck to emphasize the words that you are saying. You want people to listen to you and have imagery going on that helps reinforce what it is that you're saying. It is literally a restriction in our brains that people can either listen or they can read. They cannot do both simultaneously. So use that imagery behind you to reinforce your words. Do not put the words on the screen. By the way, I will give you a caveat. There is an exception to this, which is when you're emailing a pitch deck. If you're emailing the pitch deck around and never plan on talking to it, you can put words on slides. However, I would tell you that I would still limit them because, again, bullet points are boring. And as an investor, if I'm reading 1,000 pitch decks a year, I'm flipping through it. I'm not studying each one. I'm flipping through just to determine whether or not I want to get to the next meeting. So if I'm having to read intricate bullet points on your deck, I probably am not reading them. I'm skimming them, and you will lose me. Couple other tips. Generic language is deadly. Generic language is language that could be used across lots of startups, not just yours. For instance, our sales intelligence tool helps customers close more deals. What does this company do? Seriously, what do they do? Could it be a phone book? Maybe it's a meetup where salespeople get together and talk about leads. I have no idea. Don't use language that could apply to many companies that talks generically about what it is that you do. The way that you get out of this trap is by not telling me what you do, it's by telling me how you do what you do. Describe the how you do what you do, and you will get out of the generic language trap. Another example of generic language is we help companies collaborate on social media content. Friday afternoon beer club or app? Plugin for the web browser or software? I have no idea. Make sure that you're always practicing. Once you put together a great pitch deck, you also need to deliver it well. And the only way that you deliver it well is by practicing a good delivery. A lot of times I see founders, they come up and they start to read me or walk me through it and they stumble through it. The problem with stumbling through it is that you're actually practicing mediocrity. I want you to practice being awesome. I want you to practice your delivery. I want you to practice acting confident about your content. I want you to practice acting capable and confident in your stance. When you do that, you deliver to the investor capability that you can run a big company, that you can run $1 billion business. Remember, I'm looking for subtle cues to determine whether or not you're risky to me. And if you're stumbling and bumbling through your pitch, the subconscious interpretation that I make of that is that you're going to be stumbling and bumbling through being a CEO of your company, which, by the way, is probably true. You will stumble and bumble through it, but that's not the first impression you want me to walk away with. You want me to walk away with you feeling me feeling confident in you that you would be a good steward of my capital. Just like practicing your pitch, you also should practice your answers. You're going to get the same 5 questions over and over and over again. Write the questions down, engineer the answer to those questions, and then practice your answers. You want to practice them because the difference between, if I ask you, so explain to me a little bit more about your revenue model, and you respond to me, well, we've kind of got a few ideas about it, but one of the things that we're thinking about is we might do a freemium play, and in the interim, we're probably going to run some advertising on the site just to have some short-term revenue, and we're also thinking about selling branded materials like branded hats. I'm like, wow, that doesn't seem well thought through. Seems like you're still shooting from the hip on this one. Okay. And I don't feel confident in you. But when you come up with the same answer, just stated in a different way, we're going to make money 3 ways. First way is through our premium model on our website. Second way is through advertising. And third way is through branded merchandise. We're still playing with these concepts. They're not definitely set in stone, but at the moment, that's our best hypothesis. Got it. You felt well thought through. The answer is well thought through. Also, please, please, please do not lie or bullshit me. Investors get lied to and bullshitted all the time. And here's the problem with that. You are a steward of my money, or you are a steward of the people who I represent, of their money. If you lie or bullshit me and I pick up on that, there's no way I'm going to trust you with that hard-earned capital. By the way, I know that in your company, you are going to have a lot of problems, things that could potentially kill the business. And if you're going to lie to me or bullshit me about those things, I know the business will die, and therefore my money won't be worth anything. So if you're going to lie or bullshit me in a simple interaction like this, there's no way I'm trusting you with my capital. The best answer, if you don't know the answer to a question that you're given, don't bullshit your way through it. Just simply say, I don't know. That is a great question. Do you mind if I do some homework and follow up with you on that? Because you've done 2 things there. You've given me confidence that you're being honest with me. And number 2, you're actually getting the opportunity to follow up with me, which is the whole point of this in the first place. Do not be afraid to be honest with people about what you know or what you don't know. And use that as an opportunity to learn and also to reconnect with somebody later. Okay, so we have just walked through these 4 sections. The intro section, which you spend less than a minute on, or about a minute. The demo section, which is roughly about 2 minutes. The business section, which is roughly about 2 minutes. And then the landing. I've put the slides of the deck in each section so you could see where they go. Notice I put an appendix on here, and we did not talk about that because you do not need an appendix. However, some people feel really, really compelled to put one together. Be careful putting financials in any appendix. It is okay to talk live through financials in a meeting, but if you are emailing your deck around, you do not ever want to put financials in your deck, because that deck definitely gets emailed around to your competitors. So be careful about what you put in there. However, these are the 4 sections. As you're building your deck, this is what I want you to do. I do not want you to use a Word doc. A lot of people start with a Word doc and start creating a script. Don't do that, because that makes you put way too many words together. What I want you to do is use a deck, put the words that you're saying, the script that you would be saying in the presenter notes at the bottom, and then put a placeholder on the slide of what would be representative of what you would actually put in there when you're done. Limit each slide to 1 point per slide. You don't want to make 3 or 4 or 5 points. Those slides that I showed you on the previous slide, those are the slides that you want. Don't combine content or combine messages into a single slide. Separate each point out 1 slide at a time with imagery to reinforce and back up what you're saying. Once you have that, then you can move slides around. You can feel where you're being redundant. You can feel where it doesn't flow really well. You can actually see where you're being too wordy, because you'll have paragraphs underneath a certain slide. And you're like, wow, is it really taking me 200 words to make 1 point? When you use a deck and use the presenter notes underneath, and you only use 1 point per slide, this will help you focus on being concise with your language, being powerful with your language, and will also help you move things around until you get it to flow really well. All right, my name is Nicole Glaros. I just helped you guys not suck at pitching. With that being said, I'm gonna get out of my presenter obnoxious mode. Let me stop screen sharing, and I can take questions. I think I'm looking at the chat. I don't know if that's where I should be looking. I see Q&A. Okay, Q&A. What are some tips you have for pitching digitally instead of in person? Should we do anything differently? Yes, I love this question. This is a really apropos question for me right now because I too am fundraising. The thing that you should do, what I have found to be most beneficial, is to put together a forwardable email deck. So you want to do your pitch deck, but make it an email deck that you forward in advance. And then when you get the person on the phone, don't walk through the pitch deck. You can use the pitch deck to refer to an image or two, or if you've got a chart or a graph or something on there, you can use that. But what you should do is engage in dialogue with the person. Tell them the story. The pitch that I just walked you through, that 5 minutes, you can deliver that, but just don't do it with a deck in front of them. What I find is that people disengage when they have a deck. Interestingly, I put a deck in front of you guys. That's because there are videos in it, and I'm hoping the videos held your attention. But it's easier to engage one-on-one in a conversation rather than have to follow along rotely in a deck. As we all know, it's harder to follow along digitally. So just send that deck in advance and then use the deck to help you walk through the story, but don't put the deck up as you're talking through it, if that makes sense. What if you have a service business rather than a product or software? What should you use to demo that? Oh, this is a great question. So a couple things. I am a technology investor. We do not tend to invest in services. So I'm actually a bad person to answer this question to. However, if you do have a service, I still think you can run a demo of it. Walk me through what the service looks like or how it goes. Like if you're a facilitator, for example, tell me what's different about your facilitation skills, or give me an example of something that you've facilitated and tell me what made that different. Walk me through exactly how you do it as a service, and that will help. You can still use imagery for that, but it might be things like a flow chart or graphics that help me understand this is phase one, this is what we do, and here's what's embedded in phase one, here's phase two, what we do, and here's what's embedded in phase two. You really want me to understand the product that you're delivering, because that's going to help me understand how it's different from every other service that's like that in the space. Let's see. What are you fundraising for? I'm raising a fund. But no, none of you guys can participate, sorry. What are your thoughts about including exit strategy? I'm getting competing advice from investors. Oh, and they all feel very strongly about it. Yes, exit strategy. So it really depends on where you are. Are you really early? Is this like your seeds? Are you at the seed stage and you're just coming up with a business and the investors are asking you about exit strategy? First of all, I find those investors to be obnoxious. They are not seed stage investors. If you are a seed stage investor, you're not asking about exit strategy unless it's not clear, unless the investor doesn't think that you have one. And if the investor doesn't think that there could, or not that you have one, but that there's one that's possible, right? So, I mean, obnoxious example, if you're starting a company around underwater basket weaving, I am wondering what the exit strategy is there. Like there's no companies out there that are buying underwater basket weaving startups. And the likelihood of IPOing is probably small because you're not going to get to any sort of meaningful revenue. So I might be asking about that if it isn't clear to me how the business could potentially exit one day. If there is a clear exit strategy, so one thing I've seen done very effectively is you can talk about other companies like you that have exited in the space and what they have exited for. So you can say these two companies IPO'd and this is the valuations that they IPO'd at, or these one or two companies were bought by these competitors and this is the price that they were bought at if that information is public. That's not saying that you're going to do any of those two things, but it gives them an idea of what target, what the potential future for you looks like. And it also is helping them evaluate whether or not they would be a good investor in you. If I am a $250 million venture fund and you're showing me $50 million exits, I'm unlikely to be a good fit for you because you don't have the size exit that I can generate meaningful returns for my LPs on. So that's usually what they're trying to figure out when they're asking you that. Either they don't see the exit strategy, that they don't feel like it's possible, or they're trying to evaluate your business and the size of your business with potential fit for their firm. Oh my gosh, there's so many questions coming. Do you prefer 3 or 5 year financial projections when discussed? I prefer no financial projections. If I'm going to ask for financials, I'm going to ask for financials at the very last stage of due diligence that I have with the company. Usually I've already decided whether or not I'm interested, and now I am just trying to figure out if I'm a yes or a no. I don't think an initial pitch, you need to put financials in, and I actually think it's dangerous for you to do so. I think if an investor is asking you for 3 to 5 years of financials in your first meeting, it's probably an associate, not a partner or a GP, or it's an inexperienced angel investor. At an early stage, you just don't know, and it's too detailed of a question to get into in your first meeting. However, in later meetings, it's very appropriate. And I think that 3-year financials is the best we could ever hope for a company to provide. I mean, we all know that the one truth about every single financial projection I've ever seen is that they're all wrong. And the longer out you go, the more inaccurate they are. Most of the time when an investor is asking you for financials, they're either trying to check a box or they're trying to get an idea of how big you think the company can get and how realistic you're being. So if you think that you're going to go from 0 to $150 million in revenue in 18 months, that's probably not very realistic thinking. Or if you're showing me that you're going to get to $1.5 million in 5 years, as a VC, that's probably not a good fit for my firm. So they're trying to evaluate how you're thinking about the business. But again, too much information for a initial conversation. It is appropriate later. And usually my guideline for you and how to think about that and engage with investors in it is sit down. Don't just send it to them and be like, here's the financials, let me know what you think. You want to sit down with them, you want to walk them through it, and then you can say, hey, but these are just projections and it's early thinking. I'd love your feedback on where you think we're wrong. So you can start to then hear what the investor is digging in on, where they might disagree. And by the way, you're getting feedback on what your financials look like, which is good. Will you do another talk on first-time founder CEO communication strategy? Oh, this is a good question. I actually recently did a session with the Techstars founders on your first board. I'm not doing another Denver Startup Week panel on this, but I actually do have a blog post that I'm writing right now. So if you just hang out and watch on my blog, Nearly Nicole, I'm going to post a series of 3 or 4 blog posts that will be about managing and navigating your first board that I think will be helpful with that question. But no, not during Denver Startup Week. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing in between like chat and Q&A, so bear with me if I've missed your stuff. If I've missed your question and you're really like wanting to ask and you want me to answer it, ask it again somewhere so it gets to the top of my feed. But so Karen says, I've been told all the financial model is the #1 thing Rocky Mountain Venture Club requires before anything else. Then that's what they require. I mean, I think in that case, what they are looking for is they're trying to figure out how you are thinking about the business and what kind of returns that they can generate. Again, if you are going to be at $1 million after 5 years, that might be less interesting to them, or hey, it might be more interesting to them depending on the type of person that's making the decision. If you remember early on, I said know your audience. Knowing your audience is super important. Angel investors are going to think very differently about your business than a seed fund, and a seed fund is going to think very, very differently about your business than a larger VC, and all of those are going to think very differently than about an angel club that's putting you up in front of their members. It's really important that you understand what drives each of those groups and what they're thinking about and what's working for them. If you don't know, one thing that you can do is just ask previous people that have participated, previous people that have talked to that investor, previous people that have pitched to that club before, previous people that have either been successful or failed at fundraising there. This will help you understand because the numbers are going to be very different from person to person. Diana asked, do investors want to see your business plan? I haven't read a business plan in 20 years. And I never plan on reading one. I do look at pitch decks. I do spend a lot of time digging in on the product, and in the product demo, a lot of times I will sit next to the founder and I want to walk through every element of the product. But I haven't read a business plan in forever. Business plans tend to be for banks, not for seed or early stage venture investors. And if you have a seed or early stage venture investor that is asking for a business plan, I would ask, did they used to work at a bank? Because that's just not something we see anymore. I will actually add to that comment though, just one thing. General Eisenhower, when he was a general, said that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. A business plan can be very powerful for you as a tool to walk you through all of the key elements of your business to make sure that you're thinking all the way through them. The pitch deck is a short, much shorter version of that same thing. But I would say a business plan is a great exercise for you to go through as a founder, but you shouldn't need to give it to anyone. The planning of it will be completely appropriate for you, although the actual output of it, you'll be wrong. And so just going through the thought exercise alone will be very helpful. Yep, Canvas seems to be the new business plan. That's right. There's the business model Canvas that is basically a pitch deck. It's basically the same thing. The pitch deck is similar to the business model Canvas. It's just presented in a way that helps communicate outward instead of communicating inward. Becky asks, what industries excite you most right now? That's I get this question a lot, and of course it changes from quarter to quarter, year to year. I would say for me, the thing that actually excites me the most are the people that are behind the market, or the people that are behind the product, not the market itself. So I tend to be a team-focused investor, and I have invested in almost every sector out there. However, that being said, the things that are most interesting to me right now might be different in 6 months just because of what's going on in the world. But things like mobile voting are really interesting to me. Or telehealth is super interesting. Any collaboration tools that allow for asynchronous collaboration or virtual collaboration is really interesting. And I'm always looking. One of the things that's been an ongoing drumbeat for me has been on things that help reduce the noise in our life. So I don't need, I want solutions that make it easier for us to navigate our daily lives rather than adding more noise and more to-dos. So maybe more convenience in there is how I summarize that. Okay, how much longer do we have? We have 3 minutes. I'm assuming Denver Startup Week is going to come on and cut me off at some point. I will keep talking and answering questions until they do. So let's see, is there a preference of raising a note or a priced round? Why? I'm a huge fan of raising priced rounds. So the reason that convertible notes came into existence in the first place was because at the time they were less expensive to do. You could do them in a rolling fashion. You could just raise a little bit of money as you go without having to have a big close. And it also delayed the conversation of the valuation of the company. The problem with raising a note is that it actually puts you at odds with your note holders. You are trying to maximize the valuation of your company, and they want the valuation of your company to be as low as possible, because the lower the valuation of your next round, the more of your business they own, and you want to maximize it. So I don't like things that put anybody at misalignment with each other. Additionally, you don't ever really know how much of your business you sold unless you're doing a post-money safe. I'm a big fan of price rounds. I think it forces the issue early, and you know exactly how much of your company you've sold, and you have 100% alignment across all shareholders and everybody on the cap table. I do not like notes. I think that price rounds can be as affordable these days as convertible notes can. And so there are situations where notes are most appropriate, and it is when it is truly a bridge. If you need 6 months of capital to get you to the customer payment that's coming in, or you're involved in an M&A and the deal is not going to close in time for you to run out of money, those are the appropriate times for notes. But if it's an indefinite amount of time, you should always raise a price round. I think we're out of time. And I hear that they won't cut me off, but I would keep talking forever. You said it to your guys.
Hi, Nicole. It sounded like you wanted somebody to cut you off. So this is Hayden again. Thanks everybody for attending. Thank you to our sponsor and Molly. And yeah, thanks so much. You kind of posted your information there and encouraged folks to visit your blog. So thanks for everything, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I feel honored and lucky that you have chosen to spend an hour of your valuable day with me. Thank you so much. I can be reached at nicole@techstars.com. I do respond to 100% of emails. Don't hesitate to reach out. And Thank you so much for having me.